Welcome back to Around the Sound. It is March 7th. Well, now it's March 8th. This is being recorded just 25 minutes after midnight. It's currently March the 8th, which should be another busy day in Seattle professional sports, and we'll get to why that is shortly. But man, it was another doozy of a day. Thought the 5th was pretty busy. Didn't think we could get that way um, with the 7th. I didn't think we'd get to this um, again within the week in this sort of magnitude. So, if you don't know, Charles Hamaker with Circling Seattle Sports, this is our daily recap show. There are daily recap shows per se for Seattle sports out there, but I don't think they do the sort of job encapsulating Seattle sports as they should be doing if they're really truly a rap show like that. And that's part of the reason why I started CSS in the first place. So, not the daily rap shows themselves, but the big outlets, the big news stations, not covering the sports teams around here like they should in certain depths. We're only focusing on big teams per se. So, yeah, man, what a day March 7th was, and it wasn't in the best day for a lot of folks. We'll go. I said on the last show that we'd go from sort of significance of news down, as I didn't really want to just kind of start with the Seahawks and the Mariners all the time. Um, and unfortunately, I say that, and the Seahawks, I think, had the most significant news today. We're going to go with the Seahawks first, the Kraken second, the Mariners third. Uh, I'll go with the Seawolves fourth. It's a pretty big deal. The Storm, and then the Sounders rain. The Sounders and rain is tough just because they had a joint presser and it wasn't super insightful. Unfortunately, I had two choices. I had the Kraken trade deadline presser with general manager Ron Francis, or this joint presser at Long Acres. Um, and I RSVP'd, but I never heard back, which is not something that usually happens with either of those clubs. So I said, well, I don't want to get down there and have something weird happen. So I figured I'd go to the Kraken instead. Um, and so, I'll get to my feelings on why that's necessary in a minute. But we'll get to the Seahawks. Yeah, the Seahawks traded quarterback Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders for a third round pick. The Raiders coming into this deal had three third round picks. The Seahawks ended up getting the worst one of them, which came to the Raiders as a 92nd overall selection in the draft, which came to them as part of the Devontae Adams deal. Um, yeah, this was a bombshell. This was a shocker. This happened really shortly after we did a live stream with RJ from Emerald City Hockey to talk about the Kraken trade deadline moves. And I thought the day was done. I thought I could sit down and do some work and write some things up. Nope, nope. This news came across the ticker. My phone exploded. Um, Not literally. Uh, and yeah, it was shocked. I was shocked. Just given all the lip service that had maybe not lip service, but the dialogue that had come out of the mouths of general manager John Schneider and head coach Mike McDonald. There had been, reportedly good contract talks with Geno um, about this about an extension as I wanted to lower his cap number. Um, and one of the factors that ended up being important in this was that the Seahawks submitted an offer at about $35 million. Um, Apparently, they were willing to go up to 40 to 45 million. Geno's camp came in with an offer of $45 million. So they're about $10 million apart in their initial deal. What the reporting I saw said was that the Geno's camp did not come back with a counter offer, which was fascinating. Um, Apparently, camps broke down this week. Talks broke down this week. Sorry. Um, he was in the final year of a 3-year contract worth $75 million. He was owed 31 million this year. Uh, um, yeah. The Seahawks offer was higher, more in the range of 40 to 45 million when it was reported from SI.com's Albert Breer that it was 35. The Times source said 40 to 45 million over 2 years. Geno Smith's side reportedly turned down that offer while giving no counteroffer. And so Seattle felt like they had to go and explore trade options. It makes sense that the Raiders were involved, considering that now Geno gets to be back under Pete Carroll, who he played for 5 of his 6 seasons in the Seahawks uniform. Um, the thing that stood out to me too about trading him to the Raiders is that the Seahawks had this really wacky proposal to send Geno and wide receiver DK Metcalf to the Raiders in exchange for edge rusher Max Crosby. The Raiders quickly turned that down, and he signed an extension with the Raiders a few days ago. Um, yeah, this is fascinating. We go over it more. We did myself and our Seahawks beat writer, excuse me, Jake Parr, um, broke it down in a live stream right after this happened in a live reaction. Probably throw a clip of that in here at some point. Um, to just kind of give you a glimpse into that. Seattle is expected to explore Sam Darnold amongst others. Jake, I'm gonna post this everywhere, but I need your thoughts on this because this is we've talked about Geno Smith on the Circling the Nest podcast every week,
Mhm.
generally.
Yeah,
But I
that's
don't
been the
think
big story.
we expected this and expected this now, and we'll get to some questions that we've got my friend RJ from Emerald City Hockey in the queue after that. But yeah, both of our heads are still spinning.
Yeah, it's frankly crazy. I mean, we were talking just on the podcast on Monday, a few days ago, about how there was news coming out about Gino, about how the front office was talking about, and especially Clint Kubiak was talking about how we love Gino. He's our guy going forwards. It seemed like this wasn't even on the table very recently. So it makes me wonder, like, what's the deal with those contract talks that we were getting, that we were hearing about, that they couldn't make progress on? They stalled out. Why they're selling pretty low on Gino, I would say, for a third round pick. Vegas has the is sixth in the order,
Mm,
so sixth in the third round. Seattle, for context, is 18th in
yep,
the order,
yep.
so just about smack dab in the middle. So higher up in the third round, but like that doesn't mean anything. I mean, exploring Sam Darnold. I don't know if I want to be
Hey,
exploring a gosh, how old is he? I don't know if we're exploring anymore. At this point, it's spelunking. Um,
um, as I make a note of that. But yeah, I mean, this is fascinating. I guess one of the good things is that the Raiders are taking on all $31 million of his cap this year, a salary this year. Sorry. Um, Yeah, I mean it's pretty wild. The team will have roughly $63 million in cap space, about eighth or ninth across the league, according to Over the Cap. So, I mean, that's nice. But at the end of the day, you're going to need to fill the quarterback position. You want to remake that offensive line. And with Tyler Lockett gone at least, not counting DK Metcalf and then what his departure would mean, you are going to need at least to fill one wide receiver spot, let alone the second. So that's pretty remarkable. That's interesting. One of the initial reports after the trade stated that the Seahawks were going to be interested in chasing Sam Darnold at the quarterback position. Um, but other sources are saying that the team could be considering Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields, possibly Kirk Cousins if he gets released. They did, though, put a stamp of denial on any hope in a Russell Wilson reunion. So, yeah, that is pretty fascinating. At least in the draft, the Seahawks don't have a pick high enough to go after two of the clear top options in Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Um, and they're in a really interesting place right now with the DK Metcalf news, uh, and the and this obviously the Seahawks are in a really weird position where it almost seems like they're headed towards a rebuild when they really should be doing the opposite and gearing up to improve. After they won 10 games, they came within a statistical tiebreaker of a playoff spot, and seem to be going up into the future. So that's what we've got for the Seahawks as of now. That was the news for today. As I make another note here, um, and we'll get into the Kraken in this. This is very fascinating. Um, not as fascinating as the Seahawks, I would argue. On the fifth, we talked about the Yanni Gordon, the Oliver Bjorkstrand trade with Tampa Bay that netted the Kraken a few draft selections, including two first round picks. The Gord trade was expected. Bjorkstrand maybe not. I know his name had been mentioned before. Um, Brandon Tanev was traded today on draft deadline day, several hours before the deadline itself passed, and the Kraken did make another trade that was relatively minor as well. Tanev makes a lot of sense. He ends up going back to his former team in the Winnipeg Jets for a second round pick in 2027. And you say, well, that's not going to help us right now. We'll get to that. So again, he was Tanev was a pending unrestricted free agent. I had thought maybe they'd move him even earlier in the year because of how the roster looked with them completely healthy and how tight against the cap Seattle was. But with Jordan Eberle going down to injury and missing so many games, they needed to keep another winger, and it just didn't maybe make sense to trade a guy that early into the year. So, um, yeah, it's very interesting when you've got that second round pick in 2027. You say again, that's not going to help you right now. You have to consider the fact that the Kraken, you look at that trade as well as the Gord Bjorkstrand trade. They've got about 10 picks within the first two rounds of the next three drafts. Okay. Five picks in the first round over the next 3 years, and five picks in the second round over the next 3 years. Um, so, I mean, there's no guarantee that automatically means you're going to get a star, right? That they're going to trade for a star, but it gives Ron Francis, presumably, will be the general manager going into the offseason. As much as I don't think he should keep that job, there's no indication that he'll be gone as of right now. And this organization has tended to, stay consistent, I guess I'd say. Um, you know, and this gives Ron Francis ammunition.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of tap the sign again and just say, look, draft picks are currency. These are picks that are going to be flipped for more immediate help in the offseason. And so it just gives you, again, essentially more currency to go ahead and do that. As for the pick being later, I do think it's part of an interesting trend that we are starting to see at this deadline where teams will trade away picks. I can't remember another trade deadline where so many picks 2 and 3 years out were exchanged for players. And it does kind of make sense to me that that's the logical progression that it would take in the league, because as a GM, you never know how long you're going to have the job that you're in. And so if you just send assets further down the road, it's less likely that you're going to actually have to worry about not having those assets. And then also, okay, well, why would you want to receive those type of assets then? As a GM, it also allows you to maybe make a trade return look a little better. If it's a third round pick this year compared, there's a time value of all assets. If it's a third round pick this year versus a second round pick 2 years out, you can then claim, yeah, I got a second for this player rather than a third. And so it kind of just looks good all around.
He's got those picks that I just mentioned. They've got about $21 million in cap space currently, and that's before a potential Philip Grubauer buyout. Before a potential Andre Burakovsky buyout and or trade. And they could do other things. I was really surprised that they didn't move a Jamie Alexiak today, quite honestly. So, but essentially at the press conference that I was at today, Ron hammered home that they're going to use the assets that they have, whether it is the cap space that they have or the trade draft picks that they have to acquire talent this summer. And again, it hammers home the retooling. I need to get that point home because there are folks who think that they need to go into a rebuild, and I would agree with that. I think that they should have been on that track for their entire existence, their entire 4 years of existence. But whether it be, and it could be multiple of these, getting to the playoffs in year two, the impending pressure of the Sonics returning, and just wanting to generally win, those pressures exist, and it's obvious that those things, probably amongst others, have ownership thinking win now and forcing Ron's hand into doing that. Again, I remember being at pressers and availabilities in year one and him talking about a 4 to 5 year window. And that would have been right now, but year two changed things. And so now we're in a different position. So, excuse me. Um, mm, 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 mm. Oh yes, there were a few call-ups today. There were a few roster moves. I have to get to that because that is part of the whole show, is why I'm doing the show. To get all these little things and throw them at you in one false swoop. Um, yeah, so shortly after this, after the Tanev trade, the Daniel Sprong trade. I can do this one first because technically it happened first. The team recalled for John Hayden from the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Um, so that gives them another forward. Uh, Additionally, the team reassigned Jacob Melanson, who made his debut against the Nashville Predators last night, and forward Ben Myers to the Coachella Valley Firebirds, the team's AHL affiliate. So, I mean, that's not surprising. They sent Melanson and Myers back down um, to Coachella Valley. Uh, they had to do that because AHL rosters need to be for the playoffs, similar to NHL rosters, need to be made official. Those players need to be on the roster by the NHL trade deadline, and so now Myers and Melanson will be available um, for the Firebirds in the playoffs. I am a little interested though that Cale Fleury did not go down. Um, yeah, he's not listed um, on any of these things. So let me go and double check this. I'm not finding it. Yeah, okay. So that's kind of interesting. That didn't happen. Um, some thought that maybe Philip Grubauer would be sent down to join the Firebirds so that they could have another NHL level goalie down there. Not another, but an NHL level goalie down there. But did not happen. So, okay, we'll go along. The Daniel Sprong trade, yeah. I mean, this was one we were waiting for Ron and talked to Ron at the Iceplex, and we were told that one minor deal was going to go in, but otherwise Seattle was done at the deadline, just with the Tampa Bay trade, the Tanev trade today, and then there would be that. And I said, huh, that's interesting. Who are you moving, and why is it minor? And it ended up like right at the end of Ron's availability with us, we found out that it was Daniel Sprong to the Devils for a seventh rounder. And that is not surprising. Daniel Sprong had fallen out of favor in Seattle. They got him for essentially nothing in future considerations. Um, his flaws are obvious. He's a guy that needs to be sheltered on a lower line. He doesn't really defend at all. He's got a good shot, yes, but it seems like he's got an attitude problem, and that was evident early in Coachella Valley. If you go and watch any of the goal celebrations with him as a Firebird, like his teammates don't seem super excited about it. That's its own other thing. But he gets to sent to the Devils for a seventh rounder. New Jersey, obviously, with Jack Hughes done for the season, are looking for some offense. They did that. They got him and Cody Glass. So, hey, good luck. But yeah, so there's that. In terms of game related action, tomorrow the Kraken return to action. It's the second game of a 3-game road trip for them and the first game of a back to back. It's a really wacky weekend for them. They've got the deadline today and then a back to back. Both of them morning/day games. This game tomorrow, later in the day, by the time that you see this, is on the road at the Philadelphia Flyers at 9:30 a.m. Yes, 9:30 a.m. You're not mishearing things. And then the game after that on Sunday has a puck drop of 12:30 p.m. as they take on the Washington Capitals, and Alexander Ovechkin gets closer and closer to Wayne Gretzky's record. So the game against the Flyers is on ABC and ESPN Plus. Why that game is on that network, I don't know. Um, and then that game against the Capitals is on the Kraken Hockey Network and Kong. So that is that for the Kraken. I will go ahead and mark that off as we get to that. And the Mariners. Yeah, this one's not great. This one's not great. Um, oh, I keep my phone open because I wonder if things will happen eventually while I'm doing this. It is just over midnight, but oh, Mike Durrell tweeted Lamau crazy. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Um, Sorry, lost my train of thought. Yeah, so this happened while we were waiting for Ron. I found out that George Kirby um is dealing with shoulder inflammation for the Mariners, as we're now into the Mariners segment. George Kirby is dealing with shoulder inflammation. He will start the season on the injured list down in Peoria. Uh, General Manager Justin Hollander called a impromptu news conference to announce this. They're shutting him down due to that shoulder inflammation. He is expected to begin the season on the injured list. Hollander said that George has not been feeling great after his outings. He is throwing the ball well in those outings, the same velocity as you'd expect, but he hasn't been bouncing back great. The bouncing back is something that you'll notice throughout the course of the season with pitchers when they talk about it, that an injury, that's a big thing. We heard it with Gregory Santos a lot last year, being in the dugout, hearing Scott Service so often, and now Dan Wilson. They'd say, "Oh, this guy isn't bouncing back." I remember when Hollander told us that Matt Brash, his season was done. He was saying he wasn't bouncing back. So, that's something to look out for. When we post those updates and we're on the ground, there on boots on the ground type thing. Thankfully, he underwent an MRI and it did not show any structural damage, so that's great. No structural concerns. There is some inflammation that they want to get out, so that's the big deal there. He missed his last start. They reslotted the rotation so that Bryce Miller could make the start instead. Um, and it's funny, George is such a competitor. Um, he wanted to just keep pitching. Per Hollander, I think George's idea of recovery was just to keep pitching. Oh yeah, his treatment option is do nothing, keep pitching. I'm fine. Yeah, that sounds like George. If you've ever been around George Kirby, George has dealt with shoulder discomfort and inflammation in the past. When he was on the Mariners summer camp roster during the COVID season in 2020, he didn't feel great coming out of a bullpen and was shut down for a month. He was placed on the injured list with shoulder fatigue slash discomfort. Um, During the 21 season after his first 8 starts in Everett, but later went on to pitch for Double-A Arkansas. Um, Hollander says that this is not a day-to-day thing. It is more of a week-to-week thing. They hammered home that they want to do the right thing for him, not worry about him being on the opening day roster and prioritize his health, which with a guy like George, with any of your players, this makes sense. Um, but yeah, it was really funny that George wanted to just keep throwing and that he had to be told by multiple people in the Mariners organization and his agents that this is a bad idea. So yeah, I mean his competition level is really evident. It's going to be very obvious that Emerson Hancock will take his spot in the rotation. Um, and that's not a surprise. He did the same thing when Brian Wu was forced to start the season on the injured list with forearm inflammation last year. Um, so anything you see about potential options for him, uh, it's going to be Emerson. That's just flat out plain and simple. So that is that with George, unfortunately. It's not great. It's not great at all. I don't like to see it, but you know, what are you gonna do about it? I am glad though that they are at least prioritizing that health and that they're taking care of the boy. You know, so the Mariners did play a game today. Um, they hosted the Dodgers at the Peoria Sports Complex with weather in the 50s. Uh, and Dan Wilson after the game said that it gives us a look at that's excuse me, that Seattle weather a bit, and it does. It really does. Even though it was sunny today. So, um, sorry, I gotta keep making sure I'm checking these off. This one, I mean, was interesting. The Mariners did have a pretty decently starter lineup outside of Spencer Packard in left field, Lázaro Montes in right field. Um, no, that's about it. I mean, there's no Julio, but yeah, a lot of these guys are guys we'll see on a regular basis. The Mariners went down early. Um, Logan Evan. Oh no, sorry. Hancock was in here. He gave up 3 runs, struck out 4. He had an interesting beginning of the game as he gave up a balk, and he walked a guy. But Emerson's a guy that's going to be a lot of pitch to contact, so you'll see a lot of the Mariners defense doing some heavy lifting there to an extent. But I mean, he's a pretty solid 6th starter to have, and now in this situation until George returns, 5th starter. Logan Evans was a lot better in this one. Sorry, he gave up a solo homer, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But 3 strikeouts. He looked a lot better in this one. He's had kind of a rough spring. I mean, his ERA is 16.20, but you don't really look at the ERA in spring. Um, Hunter Cranton got hit by a comebacker, I think in the jaw. He was able to leave and was in good spirits, so that's good. But kind of the story of this game was the fact that the Mariners, the kids at the time that came into this game, made a comeback late. The Dodgers put up a 3 spot in the third inning, added on with a run in the fifth and the seventh, and in the top of the ninth. But the Mariners, who came in, were able to put up a 4 spot in the bottom of the ninth. Blake Hunt hit a 2-run homer, so that's kind of fun. If you're a believer in Blake Hunt, um, and the fact that he might, be an option for the team at a backup catcher position, that's fun to see. Hogan Windish doubled to score Michael Arroyo, and Jared Sundstrom singled to score Hogan Windish. But the Mariners had the tying run at the plate with Brock Rodden, and couldn't get it done. So that's tough. The only other thing, I guess, with the Mariners um, is do they have a split squad game tomorrow? Let me double check this. Nope, they play the Cubs tomorrow. Play the Cubs in Sloan Park in Mesa. Um, Logan Gilbert will make his third start of the spring. Other guys scheduled to pitch in this one: Seth Martinez, acquired off waivers, spent a lot of time with the Astros last season. Trent Thornton, Taylor Saucedo, and Brandon Garcia. Chicago will start Seattle native Matt Boyd, so that's fun. Pretty sure that's who I'm thinking of, right? Matt Boyd, former Mariner as well. Yeah. Yep. Bellevue native. Yep. There you go. That's cool. Brittany will get a kick out of that. First pitch is set at 12 Pacific time. This will be on the Chicago Sports Network, Marquee Sports. So it'll be on MLB.com at MLB.TV, which should be free if I remember correctly. It'll also be on the radio at Seattle Sports 710 and Mariners.com if you would like to tune in to the radio. So there is that for the Mariners. I will, yep, do that as I'm keeping track here. Got that with George. Yes. Okay, let's get to Reichert. So the Seawolves will return home to to Starfire tomorrow to play their first home match of the season. They've been on the road for their first 2 matches of the year. They've lost both of them, unfortunately. Um, and they're looking to get back on schedule. This is a year that I was really excited for the Seawolves. I thought that they did a lot of interesting moves. They reached the title match this past year. I really thought that, hopefully that they would get in and take care of business. It hasn't been the most ideal start. They trailed really heavily in week one against San Diego. That's a rivalry match against the Legion. They were down by a big score. They made a push late, but it was way too little, too late, losing 40-26 on the road in Torero Stadium. They had a bye week in week two, so they did the Rugby Rumble, which is kind of their version of a fan fest. All right, it was in the rain, but they still did it, so it's nice to see. Last week was kind of a heartbreaker. They went on the road again to play the Houston SaberCats at SaberCat Stadium and fell by 3. Houston made a big defensive stand at the end of this one. And Seattle drops to 0-2. Houston's also a little bit of a rival. Houston and Seattle have some big matches throughout the course of their season. Their existence. So it's always interesting when Houston and Seattle get into it. But there's another interesting one that comes up tomorrow because the Seawolves will be playing the New England Free Jacks. This is the Coffee Cup, if you don't know. Um, with the coffee in New England and obviously Seattle, well known for coffee. There is a actual trophy that is played for between these two teams. And it's a real thing. So, the first 1,000 fans in will get a free Seawolves tumbler, which is nice. So that's really cool to see. It is the rematch of the 2024 USMLR Championship that was played down in San Diego in California. That was tough to see. That stadium that they lost at really is a bad track record for Seattle sports because the Reign lost the title there and the Seawolves lost the title there. So yuck. But the biggest news from the Seawolves was that they will get Captain Rickard Hatting back, making his long-awaited return to the pitch. He suffered an injury towards the end of the season last year, recovering from a torn Achilles, which was a big deal. Um, and anytime you get your captain back, it's a really important deal. Record Hatting's one of the most well-known MLR players um, since the league began. Obviously, it's big to get your captain back and a key player back before a rivalry match, and especially before a home match like this. It's your home opener, right? Um, so the Seawolves release does not give me when he was hurt. That's not great. Um, yeah, it just talks about him. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, even when they went down without him towards the end of last year, it was interesting to watch the Seawolves last year without their captain because they still push all the way to the title match, obviously. It just makes you wonder what they'd be able to do um, if they had got him back. So, um, yeah, okay, interesting. And the quote that they posted says, "After the setbacks, we must have suffered a setback in his recovery." So that's tough. But we do have a starting lineup. He is in it at the number 8, of course. Um, some pretty standard guys that I'm used to seeing in this starting 15 in Duncan Matthews, Inafuti. Rodney Iona is a guy that Malachi Estiel, really pointed out as someone to keep an eye on. Seeing Devon Rousseau in there, JP Smith, you know, Rhino Herbst, Cameron Orr. Like these are all guys I'm used to seeing in the starting 15. So you're getting a pretty choice lineup for the Seawolves in this one. Um, yeah, that'll be interesting. Oh, nice to see Mason Peterson, David Busby, Malachi on the bench there in the reserves. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big one for the Seawolves. You want to get a win anyway. You want to get a win on your home opener, and to get your captain back is pretty significant as well. So that is that. That is at 7 o'clock tomorrow. You can watch it on Fox 13 if you're local. All of the MLR matches are also on ESPN Plus. And then if you're not in the United States, you can watch them on the Rugby Network. I haven't been able to watch them despite being in the United States on the Rugby Network. So there's a tip for you um, if you need that. So we will note this here and go on to what should we do? Yeah, I think we should get to the Sounders. And this is kind of going to be both the Rain and the Sounders, unfortunately, just because again, like there wasn't too much in depth to either of the teams themselves, per se. It was just kind of a lot of questions about the relationship between the two clubs and how that's going, which is nice. I mean, we've already heard that though from the Rain. If you cover the Rain, a lot of the questions were asked, a lot of them. There were some that, were from some folks who do actually cover the Rain, but we're asked we're dominated by guys who just cover the Sounders and don't really look at all at the Rain. Which is fine. If it's not your job, it's not your job, but I can understand why we didn't get the questions that were necessary, right? Um, excuse me. It was talking about how like Laura Harvey and Jordan Heidema were the two representatives for the Rain at this event. And it was talked a lot about how, they're happy that they're getting more resources. Like the Rain have been able to add a third assistant coach, and their trainers, their medical team has gone up, and their video person is now full time, right? So I mean, that's great. And Laura talked about how important it was for her to actually see an owner because since really Olympic Lyon uh came in, she hadn't seen an owner. I think she said she hadn't seen an owner since 2022. So that's cool to note at least. Um, but yeah, I mean, then it was just some other general stuff. There was nothing too Rain specific. And with the Sounders, there were some injury notes. Like after the second leg of their round of 16, competition in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. The Sounders, when they get back from that second leg in Mexico against Cruz Azul, they should get Reed Baker Whiting and Kim Keehee into full training as Reed Baker Whiting is recovering from a hamstring injury that he suffered in the preseason, and Kim is just building up strength um, after missing the preseason effectively. So those are important. Um, I think one of the bigger notable things, though, over the course um, of this presser, there was the coaches spoke together, Brian Schmetzer and Laura Harvey, and then two players spoke together, Jesus Ferreira and Jordan Heidema. And there was this was really fascinating to me. The clubs held a um they called it sort of a casual thing. Adrian Hanauer from the Sounders and Maya Mendoza Ekstrom, plus Hugh Weber. Um, Maya Mendoza Ekstrom from the Rain, and then Hugh Weber, all sat down to talk about some club initiatives. And this was huge. This was like over an hour, just about an hour. Um, and one of the major takeaways was that they talked about a soccer specific stadium. And don't get me wrong, like the idea is cool. Um, but there are things that would make it cool. Like if it was actually still in Seattle. The talk that I've seen, I think it was Weber. I don't think it was Hanauer as much. Um, but it was about being at their Long Acres campus, and that's fine. Like I understand it would be on your campus and near your facilities, and but it there are too many issues to me with this. It's way out of the way. It's not really convenient to get to for a lot of your base. The transportation to and from there is bad. I have to take it. I don't drive, so I already know that. Um, what's the parking gonna look like? Like it I just give it a giant thumbs down. I would listen more to the idea of a soccer specific stadium if the right proposal, the right site is there. But we don't have that right now. I almost said Loman Field. Lumen Field is more than a perfect option, more than a fine option. I have no issues with it. Like it makes more sense to me. Um, this idea of a soccer specific stadium, so many people like put it at a lower cap, like 12,000. I'm like, no, the Sounders already get way more than that anyway, and the Rain have hit more than that on numerous occasions. Like, what are we doing? You know? Um, so yeah, I just don't like that idea, especially when Lumen Field is there, and I haven't, I, I just disagree with that. So that's my thought. I could be a big dumb idiot. If you think that way, like, damn, you're kind of mean, dog. But I don't know. Like I'm willing to listen. Again, I'm willing to listen. It has to make sense. And the Long Acres idea, no makey sense. So anyway, the Sounders do have a match day. It's a day match. It's at 1:45 p.m. It is at Lumen. The Sounders host LAFC. The Sounders are still looking for their first regular season win of the year. They have a draw against Charlotte, obviously, in their home opener, and then they lost at RSL on the road. Not great. And this is tough. I mean, LAFC, this was the boogeyman for the Sounders last year until they beat them in the West semifinal. Um, so, I believe LAFC is 2-0 to be in the season. Yes, or 2-0 in the MLS regular season play. LAFC has dominated this head to head. 13 wins to Seattle 6 and 4 draws between these two clubs. So, um, yeah, I mean, this is a really good opportunity for Seattle to kind of push ahead here and try and get themselves going a little bit. They had a great performance um, against Cruz Azul in round one, in rounds of 16, leg one, but they should have scored in that. That was a missed opportunity. Um, yeah. So I'll say that, and I think I should say this as well because it was on the 6th, but I want to throw it in here as well so that I'm not missing it. On the 6th, the Rain did sign their third keeper, Maddie Prohaska, out of the University of Auburn. She was a invitee, non-roster invitee back in January. Part of the preseason roster. Excuse me. And so she'll slot in as the club's third keeper behind Claudia Dickey and Cassie Miller. With Dickey really firmly asserted as the number one. Miller's a veteran. Prohaska's here as a third. Um, and that's exciting. She's 22. She started 96 matches over 5 years with the Tigers. Excuse me, at Auburn. Her 36 shutouts set a all-time school record and ranked her third in SEC history. That's pretty remarkable. Um, I kind of figured that Prohaska would be the third keeper when we saw her at the event for the club's new anthem, Stand Up. I was like, well, it's kind of weird for them to invite you to this event with all of the other players that are going to be on the roster if you aren't going to be on the roster. So kind of had figured that, and now it becomes true. I think we talked about that last week on our Right as Rain show. Um, excuse me. So this puts the Rain at 28 signed players. Um, mm, 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 mm. One fun little note actually was pretty, I mean, I wouldn't say unremarkable, but not super interesting. But now at every single position group, the Rain have some sort of Maddie or Madison. With Prohaska, Madison Curry on defense, uh, Maddie Mercado in the midfield, and then Maddie Darlene at the forward position. Should be a lot of fun to watch. Maddie Darlene will be a lot of fun to watch. Um, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm saying her name correctly. Um, oh, mm, I need you to say your name. No. Okay, this is a problem because everything I'm looking at here is not saying the last name. Oh my gosh. I think I'm just gonna have to go without. Oh, wait. Okay, it is Prohaska. All right. All of that just to know um that it is Prohaska. All right. Okay. So check that off, and this will mark that, and we'll move over here um to our Seattle Storm to really wrap things up. Nobody else did anything else. The Tempests and the Cascades are inactive. They grow closer to their regular seasons, yes, but nothing there. And the only thing with the Orcas today is that it's Ross Taylor's birthday. So happy birthday to a legend in the cricket game. Um, for the Storm, I should have been doing this sooner, but now I will be. Oh, it says my microphone changed. Okay, good. Sorry, two Storm players, two rostered Storm players at least, played in the Unrivaled games today. There were two Unrivaled games: Lunar Owls versus the Rose, and the Laces versus the Phantom. In the Lunar Owls win, which they're 12-1 now, hooty hoo. Skylar Diggins Smith, point guard Skylar Diggins Smith was the tied for the third highest scorer on her team. 12 points in this one in 15 minutes, 12 points, no rebounds, three assists, two steals, three blocks. God damn. Damn. Okay. One turnover, one personal foul. So pretty nice there. She continues to be a big contributor for the Lunar Owls. I think big contributor is an understatement. Um, in this one. So no one else, yeah, in this game here. Nafisha Collier got the game winner with a 2-point shot. And then in the Laces win over the Phantom, Phantom have had a bad year. Gosh, the 3-10. I say that, and the Storm player that I'm gonna mention in this one is on the Laces. Katie Lou Samuelson was tied for the second highest score on her team. 10 points in 11 minutes, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 4 personal fouls though, so not the best there. But yeah, so okay, nice to see two pretty decently notable contributors in this game. Um, no games on. Nope, there isn't a game on the 8th. So the Phantom will play the vinyl, so Katie Lou will be back in action in this one. Oh shoot. I should see if any I gotta check if any Storm players are on the either of the teams that are playing today. Vinyl, nope, not on that team. And then the Mist have a former Storm player and Drew Lloyd, and Brianna Stewart and Washington native Courtney Vandersloot. So but no Storm rostered players playing tomorrow besides Katie Lou Samuelson in that. So that will wrap us up for another episode um, of Around the Sound. Check off all my boxes. Yep. So yeah, it should be another busy and interesting day today. I know that the Mariners play a spring training game today. The Sounders um, have their match against LAFC at home, continuing the MLS regular season. The Seawolves play their home opener against the New England Free Jacks in the Coffee Cup. Kalu Samuelson will play an unrivaled for the Storm. The Rain will play the UW women's soccer team in an exhibition match. So we're going to keep up the friendly. I believe that's their last friendly match of the preseason. So, oh gosh, 4 teams, 5 4 teams playing, 5 teams will have representatives playing. Because I don't think any. Oh no, and then there's the Kraken game. Oh, it's gonna be a busy day. So we'll probably do another one of these for March 8th. So you'll probably see me again on March 9th. So till we see you next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with Circling Seattle Sports. I'm joined by Jen Barnes of Rough and Tumble that we happen to be at right now.
Yeah.
Jen, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what we're announcing today, which is our partnership.
I'm so excited about this. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I think all of us here at Rough and Tumble are big fans of what you and your team at Circling Seattle Sports does. And so, I know you know this, but when you came to me with this idea, it just seemed pretty natural. And it's not just me. I think a lot of people in the sports community in Seattle also really respect you and your team. So it's exciting to kind of see these two things melding together, and we're really excited to start implementing some of the things and then hopefully seeing you guys a little bit more often.
Yeah, and so with what Jen says about seeing us more often, we've got a few things in the works, but you'll see watch parties here. We'd like to do a few different of our community drives, which you'll hear about here in a little bit from now. We've got to make our announcements one at a time. I can't drop everything.
Not everything
right.
all at once.
But this has been a home for a lot of our team, whether it's myself, our friend, our photographer Liz is behind the camera. Liz is here often, so our team has kind of adopted this place kind of like our own since I saw you at our soft launch. So, it's been great to have that support. And in a lot of ways, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was the Rough and Tumble embodies a lot of what Circling Seattle Sports wants to do. Obviously with women's sports, with the Storm and the Rain, but just being, having the game on, every game on.
Yep.
How much of that, did you see a line kind of even before this idea was mentioned when I first met you?
I think it's always felt like that. I mean, you and your team were here on opening night, and you just feel like you're part of the space, so it felt like really natural. And the fact that you actually cover all of the sports really makes your group stand out. So you are always covering all the Rain games, all the Storm games, UW women's softball, UW women's basketball, UW women's hockey. We love it. So all of those things, and obviously passionate M's fans, passionate Hawks fans, and passionate Kraken and Sounders fans. So really, from our perspective, those two things meshed really well.
So, you heard it from Jen herself, but this will be our home for all of these events, whether it's you can't make it to these games at home, we're always going to direct you to Rough and Tumble, and obviously the games on the road as well. All these I mean, we're talking about the Reign. They've got their schedule out finally.
Yeah. Yep.
But this will be our home for that.
Great.
The Storm games on the road. This is our home
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes.
I love it.
And when I mentioned it to Jen when I first had this idea come up, I had this idea come up wearing a pink wig
Yes, you did.
ahead of Megan Rapinoe's final regular season home game for the Reign this past year.
Yeah.
I told her it's because I wanted this to feel genuine.
Yep.
I wanted a connection to feel genuine, and it does.
Yeah.
So that's what this is. Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, and I'm so excited to finally announce this partnership.
I can't wait.